Welcome to Lifestyle Dentist Podcast, where a group of healthy, wealthy, generous dentists choose to live epic lives on their terms with freedom and fulfillment. I'm your host, Garth Hatch, and excited for our guest today. We have an amazing couple, Josh and Megan Todd. Josh started an endodontic practice called Elite Endodontics in Pensacola, Florida, with his lovely wife, who's a general dentist. She wasn't practicing, but she was definitely a big part of that startup effort. I know that, both working in the office and behind the scenes with their marketing, with a lot of other things, and just an amazing couple, amazing group. We can get into how we first met, but ever since I met both Josh and Megan, was super impressed. Just amazing quality clinicians, very smart in that way, but also amazing family, children with people of faith, and smart business individuals serving their community, do a lot of amazing things. So with that said, I will go ahead and introduce them. Welcome, Josh and Megan. Glad to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Great to be here.
Appreciate it.
You guys are amazing. We'll just roll right into it. Just to start off, where did you both grow up? Maybe you want to give a little background about each of yourselves.
Go ahead.
Let me go first. I grew up in central Pennsylvania and was born and raised there in a town called Mechanicsburg, and my whole family still lives there. I moved away when I was 18 to go to college in North Carolina at UNC. And from there, I went on to University of Louisville for dental school. And that's where Josh and I met.
Right. And I'm from a little town in Western Kentucky called Henderson. Great community, farming, just a cool area to grow up as a kid. And then I, from there, went to Auburn University for undergraduate, and then actually, moved on to Louisville for dental school, and then the U.S. Army after that.
Very cool. Very cool. And Louisville is a great school. I remember I went to dental school in Indiana, and that was kind of like a local rivalry. We do some basketball games in between Indiana and Louisville on the dental school side, but also with the university. So yeah, both great dental schools, great universities, good Midwestern individuals. So yeah, no, that's amazing. And you must have done some good wax ups or something, Josh, to be able to convince Megan to marry you. Tell me a little bit about that story.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't start really dating till the very end of dental school, and at that point, I was already on Army scholarship. My life was, I was going into the Army. That's what I was doing. I didn't have a choice in the matter at that point. And so we started dating, and we got lucky because the Army put me in Fayetteville, North Carolina for my first duty station, and she was living in Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was in a 2-year general practice residency at the time. And so, we've been dating for like about a year. And then it was kind of like, well, hey, I'm literally only got 1 more year left here in Fayetteville. What are we doing here? And so, I, through a lot of salesmanship, convinced her. It only took, many months. I convinced her to marry me and move to Fayetteville.
I left Charlotte, North Carolina to move to Fayetteville. Yes, left a really great job, great city, a lot of college friends to move
to a Army town. So.
Okay, you need good salesmanship skills. So that, as a dentist, so good for you, man. That's awesome. And Charlotte's a fun city, and Fayetteville, as they call it, can sometimes be, there's some good and bad, but no, Fayetteville, Fort Bragg's awesome. But yeah, you're right. It's definitely a bit of a,
we had great friends there, but I mean, let's be honest, like it's definitely a downgrade from Charlotte, like it was, it was a very much a downgrade.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it was, I don't know, it was kind of the start of our life also.
Well, we both were in the Army Dental Corps, so yeah, I could relate to Fort Bragg and been there. So yeah, no, I totally understand. Speaking of which, do you remember when we first met? Josh?
Dude, yeah. So I was a resident. I can't remember what it was in my mind. I think it was in my first year. I'm pretty sure it's my first year at Fort Gordon. And I think Stephanie Sadao asked you to come down and be like a consultant and just kind of give a presentation, spend a day with us. And so, yeah, that's kind of, I remember like our first interactions and everything. So, and that was getting to be a while ago.
Yeah.
So
I know.
that's almost 10 years ago now, which is kind of crazy to say that.
Remember, what was that? So that was like 2015. Does that sound right?
16, somewhere around there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is.
A decade ago now.
Yeah, that is crazy. That was with my previous coaching consulting business, and just going back to my roots, going back to Fort Gordon where I went. I was a resident, so it was fun. Just it still gave me thoughts of.
It still looking exactly the same.
Oh, exact same. Doing endolit and everything else at Fort Gordon. I can relate to that. But yeah, no, that was awesome. I remember you were a sharp guy then, and I remember being in contact with you, and both you and Megan would always have amazing questions, and just text me, or we'd talk on the phone, or just as you were getting ready to get out and with the transition. And I knew even that then you were going to be very successful, just because the way your mind worked, and you're always thinking ahead. And so, yeah, no, that was amazing. So speaking of which, tell me about your transition. So you did the residency, you would have at least a 3-year commitment after that. And then what led you to Pensacola, Florida, and starting up Elite Endodontics?
Yeah. Well, so we spent about 12 and a half years floating around the Army. And just, as your life moves, your priorities change. And so we knew it was just time for us to get out of the Army. It had kind of met a lot of the goals that we wanted to meet. And we were just kind of evaluating our life and like, what do we wanted the next chapter to be? And it was very important for us to have our kids grow up near some grandparents, at least close enough a week of life, get to them. And so probably, what was it? Like 8 or 9 years ago, my parents retired moved from Western Kentucky. They retired to Pensacola. And so we started coming down here just for vacations to visit, my parents. And so, we were kind of looking at like, well, if we're going to do this, let's look into this area. So we looked here in Pensacola, we looked at, Southern Alabama. And those are kind of the main 2 areas, right, that we focused on.
Yeah.
And so really the main driving factor was kind of a family decision. That was really the main reason why we came here. And truthfully, also the area was underserved with endodontists.
Well, and initially the plan wasn't to open our own practice. He wanted to be an associate in another practice. And so, like he said, we looked between over on the Eastern Shore, the Mobile Bay, and Pensacola, within about an hour range of where his parents live. And there just really wasn't any endo practices that were looking for associates at that time. And then we also found out that there were 2 endodontists who had recently retired in Pensacola, and no one had filled their spots or bought the practice. So there was a need here in Pensacola for endodontists. They were underserved, and really none of the existing practices were looking to hire. So that sort of led us down to start thinking, well, maybe we'll start our own practice. But that was not our initial plan. And so when we realized that was sort of what we had to do in order to move here and be near family, it was a big decision. We prayed on it a lot. And I mean, if you want to talk a little bit about when you had the moment that you realized that's what you should do.
Yeah. So I was literally sitting in church one Sunday, and we were debating on what we were going to do and talking about it forever. And there was this guest pastor, and he was talking, and he literally just randomly yells out, just start the business, start the business, start the business. And like electricity goes down my back. And so I came home that afternoon, and I was like, hey, we're starting to practice. Just so you know.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And so I was like, this just happened. So I feel like this is what we need to be doing. And so obviously we kind of, that's where our mind went. and it was
Mhm.
all on board to how to navigate those waters and what to do.
And that was
Mhm.
probably in the fall of
Probably what,
2019.
2019, and I was getting out of the Army in 2020.
Mhm.
Mhm. That's awesome. Yeah, that's a cool story. That's some inspiration too. And that is, I think I've definitely been there. I'm sure many dentists either are still in that struggle, they're associating somewhere or something, or debating what to do. But yeah, that's a big step because you are kind of step into the unknown a bit. You're a good clinician. You could do endo, but it's a whole nother ball game doing a business. So yeah.
Mhm.
And truthfully, that was kind of the reason my initial thought was like, man, it sure be great to be an associate somewhere for just a little while,
Mhm.
because I kind of
To
knew
learn
what that was
business.
going to be, and we didn't
Mhm.
have that luxury. So
Yeah. But good for you too for spotting the need that there were two endodontists that were retired. There was obviously Florida was growing. It's a good market. I know it's kind of like people in the Midwest and East Coast, they retire in Florida. People on the West Coast, they retire in Arizona. So yeah, so definitely a good demographic trends too. People move.
And then there was some unforeseen things, like, 2020 was the start of the pandemic, right? And then so
Yes. So we obviously didn't know
yeah, we didn't know that
that
was
we were going
coming.
to be opening our practice in the midst of a global pandemic. So we had
Mhm.
already had all the wheels in motion and everything set to go, and his paperwork dropped for separation. And we were originally planning on opening, I think, in like
It was
early May. I think it was
Yeah,
May.
May or June, somewhere.
Or June of 2020. And then the pandemic happened and all the dental offices got shut down. And so we hadn't even moved here yet. We were still living in Tennessee.
Yeah.
We hadn't marketed the area. And then now the pandemic happens, all the offices shut down. And so we're like, well, what do we do? So thankfully he was able to extend his time in the Army just a little bit. And, and then we just pushed back our start date to August of 2020. So, I mean, still at the beginning of the COVID pandemic for sure, but at least the offices were reopened.
Yeah.
But that was definitely a curveball that no one was expecting.
Right.
And everybody thought we were insane to be leaving the safety and the security of the Army and a guaranteed paycheck to open a from scratch startup business in a town where we literally didn't know anybody besides Josh.
And aren't allowed to go in the office to meet.
Right. Yeah. Remember that? You had to sit in the parking lot.
Right.
So
Just crazy.
it was
crazy.
when you say it out loud now, it's like, that was dumb.
Yeah.
I mean, we felt like this is just what we need to be doing. So we're gonna do it.
So we just did it. We just did it.
Good for you though. No, well, hey, you went with faith. You got that inspiration while you're at church and just said, we're doing it. So no, good for you. What were some of the biggest challenges you guys faced? I mean, definitely COVID.
Yeah.
That was,
that. And it was just, when you first starting something, you don't even know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much of it you don't know. And so we're in this new building. Thankfully we found a great place to rent for just to start off. But like, you're in a new space, new staff, new technology, new everything.
Never run a business.
Never run a business before. I don't even know where to like to answer that question. It's like, well, how many lists do we have to make for things the challenges?
With hindsight being what it is, I think the advice that I would give to other dentists who are looking to do a startup, if they have a spouse that is going to partner alongside of them and really be an integral part of that business. I think there's so many online business programs nowadays that you can do like a 18-month MBA or whatever. I wish, looking back, that to prepare for us opening that business, that I would have put myself through an online like executive leadership program or an MBA online. There's just so many available. It didn't even occur to me to do that, but knowing what I know now, I think that's the advice that I would give to other couples who are going to go into the business together, is that the non-clinician spouse would really become business savvy and do some type of education so that you have some more knowledge going into it, because none of us who went to dental school are trained in how to run a business.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of trial and error, and it's a lot of leaning into friends and mentors like you, Garth, have been, huge for us, and just knowing that we could call on you to ask you questions. And now we're those people for our friends who are doing it. And
we're trying to pay that forward now.
Thankfully it is nice, especially with the Army, that our network is so big that when you're asking for advice, you're not asking people that you're in competition with in your local area. They're all over the country, and people are very willing to help you. So that's the other best advice I have, is just to find mentors and friends who are willing to tell you the mistakes that they made, so you don't have to make them too.
That is so true. I couldn't agree more. I know with me, A scoring, which him, was that for me, just getting out, and you don't know what you don't know really when you're first getting out, and there's so many. Yeah,
it's just so much. It's so much, and so in the beginning you're just all happy. Patients are coming in, yay!
We're making money.
Money's coming in. Look at this, and then really quickly, you just realize, like, oh my God, there's all these other things like I need to pay attention to, and it's a giant list of things,
Right.
And so, and we've made some mistakes along the way. But you learn the most from the stuff you screw up,
Absolutely. You learn as you go. So no, it's so true. There's the practice, there's the insurance side, there's legal, there's being an employer for employees, getting them trained. Yeah. You've definitely, with us both being endodontists, you definitely have integrated a lot of technology in your practice. How would you look at that as far as with the technology you did, things that you would do over, things you wouldn't do over? What's your thoughts on investing in your practice and technologies as you're starting off?
Yeah. I mean, truthfully, even though as challenging as it was in the beginning, and because we went, like probably any modern office, everything was paperless, everything full in on technology. The learning curve was kind of steep in the beginning. Just not only we have staff that's never used it. I've never used some of the stuff. I mean, so we're all learning together. And that part was painful. But I don't have any regrets about that. I feel like that was just one of those things that we just had to deal with it. I mean, you just all learn together. And so, we were very fortunate to have great staff that we hired the first time around who were willing to learn something new and were okay accepting that challenge.
And with the technology that we use in our practice, we're constantly reevaluating it to make sure that it still makes sense for us and that it works. Or because, as you know, there's always new products coming out on the market in the digital space. And so we're always looking at, our practice management software, the things that we integrate with that software, the way that we communicate with our patients, the technology that he's using, X-ray sensors, CBCT, the general wave. We're always reevaluating it from the standpoint of, is this what is serving us best right now? Or is there something better out there that would work?
That will make our lives a little bit
and be better for the patient.
Yeah.
And so we constantly are looking at that and reevaluating it and just and weighing the decision. We don't just stick with something because it's what we're comfortable with. We're definitely willing to be uncomfortable in order to adopt something new and better. And that took a while to get our staff on board with that, because they were super against change, and they're like, oh, another thing. And I'm like, but I promise it's going to be better. And so once they get over that hump of the horribleness of learning something new, then they're like, oh yeah, this is way better.
Yes.
And now we've done that enough to them that they're like, okay.
And now they're just used to being uncomfortable.
Yeah, they are.
They're just kind of like, oh, okay, it's we're a little uncomfortable now, but it's gonna be fine.
It'll be fine.
I know that. I know when we were doing some of the phone training skills, there was definitely some initial pushback.
Yeah, exactly. But now they're and then
phones or
So, but it's just a point of, you just constantly communicate to them, the why behind things, and you're just it's a kind of a grind, but and then you come on the other end of it, and they've grown and they see the advantages, and you're like, oh, see, and it's all.
That's so true. That's so true. How has that been as far as being the leader, explaining the why? Because I completely agree, and I know your team, they love both of you. They both and respect both of you as leaders. How has that been, and any advice on being a good captain of the ship for your practice?
Yeah. So from day one, we've always tried to view this practice. I mean, yes, it is a business. It needs to be making money and all those things. But we also felt that we could use the business as a way to just give people a job that's just different and good and like just feels good, just as a good place for them to come. They feel safe, they feel taken care of. And so we try to use it as that to be kind of like a platform for us to like kind of invest into our staff. And so that's kind of how we approach like the leadership aspect of it. And that's how we like look at them. And like, we felt like if we took it from like a servant leadership perspective and we like, hey, I'm going to I'm going to let you feel safe and like have you a good place to come work, that would come back to us like tenfold. And so it does involve like sharing. I tell them the why behind almost everything. I mean, there's not much that I feel like I'm pretty transparent with them. From some people will probably be like, you're saying too much. It's too much.
Yeah.
It's an overshare. They don't need to know those things.
Yeah.
But there's so people, when you tell them why you're doing something or what this is going on or whatever, there's no like chirping in the background, right? Like it kind of squashes a lot of that. And I think it just makes you more of like a normal person versus just like the doctor in charge. Right?
And I think we've done a pretty good job at encouraging our team to share their ideas. So we really try to foster in each different area, front desk, clinical staff, our managers, like for them to take ownership of their job and say, you are an expert at the front desk. We are not. So if you have an idea that you think is going to make the front desk better, the patient experience better, please bring it up, same with clinical and our managers. And that took some time because I think a lot of times it's hard. The staff doesn't really feel like empowered to speak up. They're used to probably working in dental offices that it's like the doctor's way is the only way. And so we have tried to foster that in our team through having team huddles and just celebrating people when they do come with an idea. Because I think the more people that you have bringing ideas to your business, the better it's going to be, because each of those individuals sees something that you can't see as the doctor. You are an expert at doing root canals. You are not an expert at answering the phones and dealing with insurance. Let's be real. You don't really know much about that at all. So you should be able to take advice from those people that are on the front lines every day doing that job.
And it's worked. I mean, there's been several times where like, just like a regular front desk person, she's improved one of our systems that we had in place. And like she had this one little idea. They tried it for like a day and everybody's like, whoa, that was great. And now it's just what we do.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't like provoke her to do that. She just had this idea and let's try this. Okay. Let's try it.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and obviously you created a safe environment where they felt like their opinion mattered, that they did take ownership and
yeah. And then if they screw up and if something doesn't go right, it's like, well, hey, we tried. I mean, we didn't know we tried, and then I tell them the things that I do sometimes are like, hey guys, this just didn't work out. I'm really sorry. I thought this was a good idea. Just so my bad. I'm sorry, and let's just move on.
Well, and I love how you said, give them the why. That was a mentor of mine said, anytime you give assignments to a team member, you want to say the five W's, who, what, when, where, and why. Yeah. And especially the why. That way, when they understand that, they are willing to tackle it and they know there's a reason behind it. It's not just because I said do it,
Right. Exactly.
That's awesome. Another thing, I know you're loved by your referring offices and your patients that come see you, and which is a blessing, especially when you're starting off, and also sometimes when you're adding new docs can be a challenge because they always want to see Dr. Todd.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on doing great great patient care. And then also, we could transition into going from a single doctor office. And I know you're not going to brag about yourself. You don't have to say any of the numbers if you don't want to, but I know coaching with you that you've done very well in the last couple of years with your growth and growing from a single doctor practice to now 3 endodontists in your practice. And you guys have really been on a rocket ship of growth, which that can sometimes have its own challenges because you're really on a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And you learn as you grow. But do you want to touch on that? I guess that's a little bit of two questions, but one, great patient relationships, and then as far as with adding additional providers.
Yeah, I'm gonna start off talking about like how we built our referral relationships.
Yeah, do that. That's really good.
Touch more on patient care.
Yeah.
and adding doctors. So back to our original story of when we started here in so Josh couldn't leave Tennessee because the Army said you can't leave a 20-mile radius. You're stuck here. You're not allowed to leave because you'll get COVID or whatever. And so we're like, great, we have to market this practice. We're opening. Josh has literally never met any of these doctors or dentists. We've never even been there. So I came down myself. I loaded my kids in the minivan and all of our marketing material. And I came down, and thankfully we already had hired our office manager. She came from a previous one of those retired endodontists, and she was great. And so she and I drove around to I don't even know, 100 offices in a week. And again, had to sit in every single parking lot and dial the phone. Hi, we're here. Give my little spiel. This is who I am. Will you come meet me at the door? Or can we come in? And then I would have my mask on. They would come out with their hazmat suit on, and I would shove my goodie bag at them. Here, please send us patients. But everybody was so excited that an endodontist was coming. And so it was pretty easy to say that. They were like, great, we need one so badly. But it was really unique when we opened our practice that when we came, Josh actually hadn't met
Not a one.
any of our referring doctors.
Not one.
And because the need was so great here, as soon as we opened, we were super busy from day one, which I know is a huge blessing and it's not most people's situation. And to the point where he couldn't even leave the chair to go out and market. So I did all of the marketing for us in the beginning to grow those relationships. And he would talk to people on the phone, but didn't, again, there weren't lunches going on. We couldn't have an event where we could bring everybody together. And so he just would do the root canals and he wouldn't even know whose patients they were because he'd never even met the dentist. So it took a while for us to establish those relationships. And for me, Stacy Hill from Endo Marketing Group was integral in teaching me how to market and how to grow those relationships. And she's big on saying, you always need to get people to know, like, and trust you for them to send you their patients. And so we had to get over those hurdles. And I would say the third one, getting them to trust us, took the longest because they didn't even know who he was.
Yeah.
They couldn't even pick him out from a crowd. And it took a while to really build those referral relationships, but we were really intentional about it. And so we just focused on creating an excellent patient experience so that when the patient came and they would go back to their general dentist, they would have really good things to say.
Yeah.
And then once we were allowed to start having events and things like that, we started, having practice events and bringing dentists together so that we could get to know them. But that is, as a specialist, as you know, Garth, that's where most of your marketing efforts go into developing those relationships with your general dentists, because the patients are a one and done thing. Usually we don't have a relationship with our patient. We create the relationship with the referring dentist who has the relationship with the patient and then trusts us enough to send their patient to us. So, Stacy was huge in guiding me and mentoring me in how to grow those relationships. And it just takes time. That's what I would tell any new specialist is it takes time and effort and intentionality because you are growing a relationship and that takes time, like any good relationship does. And now we've we're almost 4 years into the practice now.
Yeah, 4 years into it. And like I said, the first year, we just focused on what the patient experiences. Because that's the thing we could control. Patients got to come in through the door. Like, we got to treat the patient. So, like, let's make them feel like what is this? This is amazing. Why would a root canals can be fun? Crazy stuff. And we found nice, compassionate staff. But we found nice staff, but also, like, they kind of reflect you. Like, if I was gruff and, like, hard, then they would probably kind of emulate that a little bit. So I made sure I was very, like, gentle in how I talked and all those things. And I don't have a whole lot of ups and downs in my personality. I'm kind of pretty center mass all the time. So that kind of helped.
From your Colby score, you know that, yeah, right?
Yeah, that's exactly validated by the Colby score. That's right.
Right in the middle.
And so we focused on that a lot, and then so slowly, I mean, it was like pushing a giant boulder up the hill, like one patient at a time. They would go back to the gym. This is amazing, and they do this and that, and this gentle wave thing. It makes my root canal so great, and all these stuff. And so then eventually we started, when we could have people in our practice, we started hosting some CE events and things to, like, introduce them to what we were doing. And, like, it just was this slow momentum that took a couple of years to grow. And so thankfully it grew to the point now where we're in 2023, we added 2 docs. And that was insane. The goal was I always kind of wanted to kind of modeling some of what you did, Garth, in your practice. I was like, well, I kind of want to have something like that too. And so the goal was never for me to work by myself. And so we were recruiting hard. One gentleman, who I went to residency with in the Army, so he's very familiar. We knew each other, pretty well. And he wanted to come down here and join. And then we had another gentleman who was getting out. He was retiring from the Navy, looking to stay in the area. And so, but he was retiring at the exact same time that the other guy was joining us. And so I very much, like, under promised this gentleman. I was just like, look, man, I have no idea. I never had 1 associate, let alone 2. I'll just be honest with you. I don't know how it's going to go. But you're a nice guy. We're nice people. I'll be transparent with you. Like, I'll never stab you in the back. I said, I'll be as forthright as I can with everything. And so it's like, well, that's fair. I'm like, okay. So he joined like 2 months after Jared joined. And it's just kind of, we were able to kind of keep him busy. I sometimes the math just seemed crazy. It's like, I don't know if it's going to work. And, like, now we're all,
I think what we've noticed, and you talked to us a lot about the start too, is that the more availability we had on our schedule, the more patients and the more referrals came in.
Yeah.
So I think we were missing a lot of potential opportunities before, when it was just Josh, because he got booked out really far. And then that becomes a negative. If people can't get in quickly with an endodontist, they're going to go somewhere else. They're in pain. They can't wait. And so, once we added Jared and then Terry, we immediately saw their schedules getting filled with kind of that overflow of the people that we weren't able to get in before.
Right.
And now we're, and then I went back out and marketed again. And I took Jared around, I took Terry around, introduced them, have practice events, got them, because you said earlier about, some patients only want to refer to Dr. Todd. And we didn't want that to be the case.
Yeah.
So, couple of things. One, since he hasn't been here that long, it's not like, oh, he's been my endodontist for 15 years or whatever. Right. I don't know these new people. Yeah. It's just been a few years. And then between the 3 doctors at our practice, they've tried to standardize as much of it as they can. So when the patients come in, they are getting the almost the same experience. Excuse me, no matter which provider they see. And so they're all doing the gentle wave. They're all incredibly nice, compassionate, kind people. So it's not, there's not a huge difference between our doctors. And that was really Josh in looking for who he wants to bring into his practice. He's not going to bring in just any endodontist. He wants to bring in someone who shares his same values and his same outlook on patient care, how the patients are treated, how the staff is treated. And that's a lot of the conversation that he had on the front end before any paperwork was ever signed, because he was like, look, this is how I do things. This is how I run my business.
And this is what we do for our staff.
Right.
And you got to, if you want to come in, you got to be okay with this. Cause like,
right. It's just,
they're,
yeah.
you don't even realize how important your staff is to you being productive.
Yeah.
Like until you're living it. And so I was like, if you want to be productive, have happy people come work with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I was like, you got to be okay with some of the stuff we're doing. If you're not, then don't.
Then it isn't the practice for you.
So true. So true. Well, you guys hit on a bunch of things. And by the way, you really are both just a beautiful couple. I mean, it's not hard to see that you put out your secret weapon when Megan was out marketing.
Despite at this point when I show up.
Anybody watching on or just listening on audio, they're both could be supermodels. There's such a and that was such a weird time. I mean, with masks and hazmat suits and everything else.
Yeah,
so that was
truthfully, it was scary. I mean, for us, it was scary. We're leaving the safety of this like world. You know, it was scary, and we'd be lying to say we was. I mean, there's definitely some moments like, oh my god, what are we?
Well,
what are they doing?
And another crazy thing that happened. So we talked about already the need, right? 2 endodontists had retired, and people here were like just so everyone geographically understands, when I say send your patient to Alabama, we're talking an hour. Okay. We're real close to the state line, but still to have to drive an hour to go see a dentist is kind of nuts. We don't live in a rural area. So, but that's what the dentists were having to do here, because the Pensacola endo market was so underserved that the patients had to go to Alabama because those 2 guys had retired. So anyway, so we come in and we find out that another endodontist is opening his practice around the same time as us. And because of COVID and the timing and everything, we literally ended up opening our practices on the exact same day. The exact same day. And so we were like, okay, well, now, Pensacola is back to capacity and whatever. And then, within 6 months, we find out that he added an associate to his practice, and then another satellite office opened and put an associate in. So within the first 6 months of us opening our practice, the area basically doubled the amount of endodontists it had. And so we thought we were coming into this wide open market, which we were, but then simultaneously, 3 more endodontists showed up within the first 6 months of us opening. You're like, okay, well, we'll figure this out. So we really had to figure out how we are going to differentiate ourselves. And we don't know anyone here, and we're not from here. So that was more challenging too. Just trying to create those connections and grow those relationships literally from scratch. And that took a lot of time and a lot of effort.
On that note, Megan, because you were a big part of that with the transition. And I know I've definitely been there as far as being a single doc and having other docs in the practice, and what a difference that makes. I can remember many times going on vacation and I'm stressed out of my mind. The kids are playing at the beach and I'm like thinking, oh, all my patients are going somewhere else, or what's going on in the office, And so having that extra coverage. But that was a tricky time too, because the other office had came in at the same time as you guys. What gave you both the courage to say, no, I think we'll be okay. I'm still busy enough to add additional providers to have that lifestyle, coverage.
Yeah. Thankfully, even with those other endo practices opening around the same time as us, there was just enough business for everybody. And so we didn't ever feel that we were fighting for business or fighting against any other practices. Everybody can have plenty of root canals to do at their own business. And so when we thought about bringing in the additional associate, we knew it was a good decision, because at that time, Josh was booked out for treatment about 4 weeks, which is just
it's usually 4 to 6 weeks was usually about the amount of time we were booked out.
Way too long. So we knew that if we brought in a full-time associate, basically the second 2 weeks that he was booked out would just switch over to Dr. Beam's schedule, and then they would both be booked out about 2 weeks. And that's kind of the sweet spot, is being less than 2 weeks and being able to get people in for emergencies. But I want to say, you were talking about going on vacation. And so one thing that we kind of set a hard boundary around when we opened the practice was the amount of hours that we were going to be open and the amount of time off that we were going to take. And that was really good advice that we got from somebody else before we opened, was go ahead and like set your schedule now and stick to it, because people will take as much time from you as you're willing to give them. And so create some hard boundaries around that and schedule some time off and just be okay with that. And so even during the first, year and a half or 2 years, when we would close, not only was the doctor out of the office, we didn't even have anyone answering our phone. And because we literally had 3 staff members, and we're like, what are we going to tell them? They have to come in and sit here and answer the phone while we're gone. And so we didn't do that, because we had one admin person. So it would mean she was the only one having to work. And we just didn't think that was fair. Right or wrong, that's what we did. We probably should have answered our phone. We probably should have, but we just couldn't figure out how to make that work.
And part of like us impacting people is like, we wanted to give employees who normally don't get a whole lot of time off, we wanted them to feel like they could also rest and feel like they had a well-rounded life also. So, I mean, we gave them the time off.
We did.
That's so what we chose we're going to do.
We closed, and he set hard boundaries around his time. So his hours were, 7:30 to 3:30, Monday through Thursday. And that literally meant that time. He didn't stay there until 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night, even though there was obviously tons of patients that need to be seen. He was just okay with, well, those patients, because we're not in a rural area, there are plenty of providers here. We're not leaving a patient in pain. They have other options to alleviate their pain. They're going to get taken care of. If we were the only provider in a rural area, I'm sure we'd feel a lot more responsible to take care of those patients. But knowing that they did have choices, we didn't worry or concern ourselves about the lost business, because we just knew, like, he had to protect his time and his health, and
preserve himself.
Working 50 hours a week as an endodontist is unreasonable. And
that's 7:30, 3:30 while we were there. We get it. We get
You're working while you're working.
After it. And it's 8 straight hours, like minimal, bathroom breaks. You grab a quick snack and you get back in there. So like, it's not a whole lot of downtime during those 8 hours.
Right.
And that's what we told the staff. We're like, look, you're going to have time off where you're allowed to like rest and recharge and have a high quality life. But while we're here, expect me to push you and be churning and burning. And they were okay with that, because they knew, like, on the back end of that, they were going to be taken care of.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's kudos to you both to see the foresight of, hey, we're booked out 4 weeks. There's capacity that we can still meet these patients and bring on additional providers. And I would say that 1 is the loneliest number in business, One front desk person, 1 assistant, 1 dentist, that you're only 1 person away from the chain breaking, and then everything shuts down, So if you can have that additional capacity of additional provider, additional front desk, additional assistant, so that you can answer the phones if you're closed, but somebody can be there, but then somebody else can take a break and then they can switch, or you have some part-time people that can fill in as needed, just having that additional capacity, like at Walmart, how they have 1 million checkout stands, and most of the year they only use a handful of them. But there's those times in the year where they're so busy that they use them, that it's still profitable to have that many checkout stands. And dentistry is similar, where we wish it was just like this easy, steady flow of patients. But there even in dentistry, there's a lot of ebbs and flows where there's a high capacity time of the year and then a lower capacity.
Yeah.
When you can get them in when there's a high capacity, but still have a lifestyle, because I completely agree with you. At the end of the day, if you're feeling burnout, stressed,
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to keep that up long term. And you hear so many dentists that do leave the profession just because they're like, I can't take this anymore. I'm exhausted.
It's, I mean, that's the reason that I stopped practicing clinically. I practiced everywhere. We lived, I don't know. I mean, I'd have to count up like 6 or 7 places in 12 years. And I've had that many dental licenses. And so when we were moving around with the Army every 2 to 3 years, I would have to re-credential, re-license, look for a job while we were raising our kids in a town where we didn't know anybody. Thankfully, as you know, the military community is super close knit, so people help you out. But we never had family nearby. And that was really stressful to our family, and for both of us being clinicians. You can't just, oh, my kid's sick, let me just cancel my whole day. I mean, you can, but then think how many other people's lives you're affecting. You can't just, oh, I'm going to work from home today because my kid's sick. That's not how any medical profession works. And so when we moved here and decided to open the practice, taking on that additional responsibility, there's just no way that we could see me working clinically, him working clinically, us running this practice, raising our kids. It just wasn't feasible for the lifestyle that we want to have. And I know plenty of people that do it. And, that's awesome for them that they have that capacity. We just know our own limits, and we know what we're capable of doing, and we know how we feel when we push ourselves past that. And we also know what's most important, which to us is our family, always. I mean, our marriage, our family is going to endure long past when we sell this practice.
Right.
And we don't want to sacrifice those things now for the business. So it's always a constant balancing act and checking back with ourselves to make sure that we're keeping in line with, what God wants for us, what our plan is, what our vision is, what our goals are, what's our most important. And we're always balancing that against the opportunities that are put before us, because there's a lot of opportunities that we could say yes to, but if they don't make sense in the context of, is this best for our life, then we're going to say no. And that's hard, because it's exciting to grow and watch things build. And sometimes you want to say yes to everything, but you can, but it comes at a cost. And I think a lot of times, people don't, think about that cost that they're taking on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've heard everything you say yes to is one thing you're saying yes, but everything you say no to is one thing you're saying no, but everything you say yes to is like 10 other things that you're saying no to,
Yeah.
And so, you have to prioritize what's most important. You hit on a couple things, both your family and your faith, which knowing you both, I know those are very important things. How have those things helped you? And also, how do you balance that, your family and your faith, running a busy, successful practice?
Yeah. I mean, well, to us, the practice is also kind of like, is part of our outreach. Like it's kind of what we do for our staff. I mean, I talk to them a lot about like, while we're working, I like try to know what's going on in their lives, and make sure when they, people's lives are complicated, and like when they have stuff going on, we usually know. We usually know there's something going on. There's times where like we have stepped in as like Josh and Megan stepping in to like be there to help them out. Not like the business, but like, hey, we're going to be here to help you out with whatever it is. And so that's kind of how we've used that as a way to impact our employees and to make them feel cared for. And so, and in terms of balancing family, because we do own the practice, like, I mean, there's like, for example, this past winter, I coached both my kids' basketball teams. Well, I wanted the first practice to start as soon as their school was over. So like we weren't having to go back out and like 5:30 or 6:00 and do that. So I just set my schedule in a way where like, well, look, hey, for this basketball season, I'm done working at like 2:15. So I would cut off at 2:15, out the door at 2:30. Or I'm at my kids' basketball practice at 3:00, starting at 3:00, and so we're able to kind of do that and still be home at a reasonable time. So we all have dinner together. And yeah, there was 2 days a week where I was losing out on some money, but like I was investing into the lives of my kids and the other kids were around. And so, to me, that was more of a priority than that little 1 hour of money that I was going to lose,
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
so we try to really reevaluate that, especially as our kids get older. Their needs change. Their needs change. So we need to be accommodating to that, and just kind of how we can structure it, the business around what we want our lives to be.
And for me, it's been incredibly important to, as we've grown the business, we have raised up some managers who have been integral into the success of the practice and to taking things off of mine and Josh's plate that used to all fall on us when, like you said, it was just like one,
Right.
just us. And now I've spent a ton of time pouring into these managers and training them and investing in them so that they feel confident in their roles. And that has taken a huge amount of stuff off of my plate that I don't have to worry about anymore on a day-to-day basis, which has freed up more time for me to be available for our kids, to be at their school events, to not be stressed when I pick them up from school because I have all the business stuff still on my mind, or I just, was dealing with some stuff on my computer and then I go to school to pick them up and now I'm still stressed out. And anyone who has like school age kids who are involved in after school activities knows you have a part-time job from like 3 to 8 p.m. every day. It's the homework, it's dinner, it's a sport, it's get them home, showered, bed. And so if you're both working stressful full-time day jobs and then you transition into that evening, you're just burning the candle at both ends. And eventually that's going to take a toll somewhere on your health, on your marriage, on your family, maybe on your business, somewhere that is going to cause fractures. And so we've just tried to, I guess, develop people at our business to take more leadership roles. And that has taken a lot off of our plates personally.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. And you hit on health too. What you both appear very fit, healthy. What have both mentally and physically? What are some things you both do to help stay fit, healthy, both on a physical side and a mental side?
Yeah. From a physical side, I mean, back when you're in the Army, you're like, they take fitness tests, and there's all these. You're kind of like, fitness is even the most priority when you're in the Army because you just have to. And so, I would say what my life looks like now in terms of that is very different than when I was in the Army now. And plus, too, I'm in my mid 40s now, and um, so really now it's just trying to find like, small chunks of time are like, hey, I just got to go to the gym for like 25, 30 minutes just to like move my body and do stuff. I feel very fortunate. I live, my office is just a mile and a half away from our house. And so now that it's kind of getting lighter out earlier, I try to ride my bike 2 days a week to work. So,
That's awesome.
which is wonderful. It's wonderful. Cell phones in the backpack. It's amazing. No, it's like 20 minutes a day. No one can touch me.
Awesome.
So you just try and find like little chunks of time where you can work out. I used to be able to wake up early in the morning and like exercise before work. And I know you do that, Garth. Power to you. Like getting up in the morning, it might as well be looking up at Mount Everest to get out of the bed in the morning. It's so hard. I can't do it anymore. I just can't.
There's just seasons of life. And hey, believe me that I went through a big season, especially at the beginning, where I was burning the candle at both ends when it was just me.
Yeah.
And, growing the practice. And sometimes it's a blessing and a curse when you start doing well. Initially it's like, well, I'm making more money than anybody in my family has ever made.
Yeah.
This thing go, cause you first go from, am I even going to make it to, wow, I'm doing incredible. But then you got to know how much is, when do you say enough's enough? Cause your health is starting to suffer. Your family relationships are starting to suffer. So yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, 100% with that. I mean, that was me last year. And I mean, again, like Garth, you've been so amazing and such a huge help to us, both, as business owners and as a couple, just kind of coaching us through this transition and this period of growth. And I hit a point last year where I was like, I can't keep doing this. I just can't. And that was when we sat down and we really made a plan for how are we going to get me out of the practice, and more focused on our family. And you really helped us walk through that and helped us train up our managers. And I feel so much better and more well balanced now, and have been able to, because I was definitely sacrificing my health last year. I was never working out. I wasn't eating healthy. I would just skip lunch. I would work all day. I would sit at my computer all day. I mean, my neck, my shoulders were just, I was not in good shape. And I've been able to get back to that, focusing on my health again. And even when I was in that time period of intense work, I started recognizing I was having those problems, and I would set like timers on my phone to say, all right, I'm going to stop. I'm going to eat lunch away from my computer, take a break, and then come back to it. I'm going to cut off at a certain time, so I have a break before I pick the kids up and I roll into that. So kind of back to setting those boundaries. It's easy to just like let things bleed into every part of your life if you don't set hard and fast boundaries and then stick to them. And as an adult, like, you have to be responsible for yourself. No one's going to make you do that. No one's going to make you go to the gym or stop working. Like, you have to take responsibility and take ownership of your life, and see, this is not working for me, and recognize it and be willing to make a change.
No, that's so true. That's so true. What's your thoughts on coaching? Because you did touch on that. What advice would you give to a dentist that either they're getting ready to transition to private practice, or they're in that rat race right now, just getting practice up and going on coaching?
Yeah, I don't think it really matters what phase of like all this that you're in, whether you're at the beginning or nearing the end or wherever you're at. Like, there's so much. I mean, when we started business, there's so much business stuff. I never even took an accounting class in college. So I don't know how it's physically possible. I didn't take one business anything in college, but I didn't. And so, it just be honest with yourself and like recognize that like there's so much you don't know, and just start looking for someone that you can hire who can like help walk you through things. Like, I think you're like the second consultant that I've used now to kind of help me learn and grow, and like how to look at stuff, and like, and so, and it's not that, and the first coach I had, I remember there was a moment where I was like, I feel like he's kind of gotten me about as far as he could get me, and like, it wasn't like an indictment on him as what he had provided with me. It was just like, wow, this guy's grown me to the point now where and he even I even mentioned that to him, and he goes, I'm not supposed to be here forever.
Yeah.
Like, there's a season you need me.
Right.
And you can come back to me with questions and stuff like that. Like, you can definitely like, ask me things later on, but I'm supposed to just get you through the seasons to keep you like growing and moving. And so I feel like consultants and like just hiring someone, because if you don't bring in outside ideas from something, you're not going to get them.
You're not going to grow.
And you're not going to grow and
stuck where you are.
And not that everything and I think sometimes people can get stuck up on, well, I don't like this or that, but there's nuggets to take. There's still nuggets to take. Yeah. Well, maybe you didn't like something, but maybe it helps guide you to something you do like, so I don't know. I always think there's some way to get something good out of everything and how to continue to grow. So I would encourage anyone, hire someone to help you, help challenge you, help you look at things in a different way, and just to kind of keep moving forward.
And I think another huge thing with coaching and consultants is we worked with McGill Hill from the moment we opened our practice. They're based out of Charlotte. They're a dental financial advisory firm. There's many different firms like them out there. That's who we work with, and we love them. And they've been a huge, huge part of our success and knowing how,
they kind of gave us a playbook.
Yeah,
they gave us a playbook. Here's how to get where you want to go.
Because they only work with dentists. That's another thing that we always tell our colleagues who are looking at starting a business or have started a business is don't go and hire your friend's dad as a CPA or your, cousin or the guy down the street. Hire the person who knows dentistry, who knows your business, who understands your business model, who's worked with thousands and thousands of dental practices before you.
Yeah.
And that is another thing that we're huge on is you want to hire the people who are the specialists in what we do, and we do dentistry. And so we're huge believers in hiring coaches, consultants. Some people bulk at like the price of it, but when you just break it down into like, how many more new patients would I have to get for this to make sense? It's not that many, and if the coach and the consultant is worth their weight, they're absolutely going to bring you more value than whatever their price tag was. And so we're huge believers in that. We've used many different coaches and consultants in the last 4 years, and it's been amazing for us. So we highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I've done it throughout my career. I still do. I still have a coach and consultant I'm working with now. And it's amazing. Sometimes it's just like that one or two little ideas and it pays for the entire thing for the year. And you get that knowledge for the rest of your life. So yeah, no, it is such an amazing thing. Well, Josh and Megan, I know you guys have a hard, deadline. I want to keep you respectful of your time, but thank you so much for sharing. I know a lot of people are going to get some amazing value out of this interview, and you guys dropped some real gold nuggets of things that people can take in their lives, in their practices, everything else. So thank you so much for your generosity and your time, and just for your amazing example. You guys are an awesome couple, living the lifestyle, the lifestyle dentist style of doing well in your practice, and also with your family, with your health, with your faith. You guys are a great inspiration to me and to many. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for your time.
We really appreciate you having us on.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you guys. Have a great day, and best wishes to everyone, and look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.
Okay, you too, Gar.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.